Okay, we are about to go live. We are now live. I'm super excited, guys. Welcome back to Breaking Barriers. We are live streaming here today, and our guests are coming in from Colorado. We're really excited to have you both, Megan and Nicole, on the pod today. For people who are watching in, there's no way that I could do the justice to what you guys are doing in the microdosing industry. So, can you talk about what it is you guys are doing right now? Talk about your business, all that stuff, and give us a high level of what's going on and the profound impact you're making on this industry.
Yeah, so we're so excited to be here, John. Thanks for having us, first of all. And the microdosing industry is the fastest moving industry pretty much worldwide right now, which is insane. It's so fun to watch what we're doing and seeing in mental health and just overall the relationship communication skills that we're able to bring people new life, essentially. And what mushrooms actually do is work in the neuroplasticity. So, we sit in therapist's office and we do all these things. And Nicole and I spent years in therapist's office trying to figure out our trauma. And people use the word trauma all the time now, but it's like, what do you do about it? And mushrooms kind of were the answer to that for us. And we were able to bring it to other people through our coaching program, which is 12 weeks long. And the results we're seeing are just mind-blowing. With framing and mushrooms, you can essentially be the person you were born to be and get out of the scripting that is our parents and the trauma in the DNA. And we're just really excited about all that's coming in this industry.
Yeah. Well, and we're really getting to see the push on mental health. We're seeing the pharmaceuticals kind of freak out right now because they're seeing that in clinical trials, psilocybin alone is breaking numbers. Addiction and just the overall wellness of the brain and rewiring people's thought patterning with psilocybin. In just one dose, we're seeing that addicts are coming out 87% in clinical trials. They don't want to use again. I mean, that's a profound number considering the fact that most of these individuals that are in these clinical trials have gone through rehab 3 or 4 times. They're severe addicts, and now they actually have a choice and something that's actually biologically helping them change their brain patterning.
Well, what I love about talking to the both of you is that most of the words you use, I'm like, huh? and there's so many medical terms and things that you guys know. Obviously, there's so much science-based things that are happening behind, the microdosing. And what I find so fascinating is that over the years, you've seen it go from the stereotypical, like people looking at it like it's a drug use in its own, as opposed to actually being seen as a treatment. And there's a vast majority of the consumers, or even just the population in the US, that still doesn't understand that. What made you guys look to this microdosing world, and how did you embark upon that, right? So like, what was that first journey to say, well, I'm going to try this? And then the interesting also question is like, how did you guys really start to break into like the effects of it helping you and any traumas or experiences you've had in obviously your earlier years, and correlating the two and the help from the microdosing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, John, when you have nothing left to lose, it's Nicole and I grew up in an alcoholic home. We had a mentally ill mother. She actually was in a psych ward for a year of our lives when we were kids. And when people can't give you answers and you grow up and you get into your 30s and you start hearing like microdosing, mushrooms, da 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 da. And I had a interaction with something called rape. They tend to call it hape in America. I don't really know why, but it was such a profound energetic shift just using, and it's nicotine. It's essentially tobacco leaves in a shamanic snuff. It was so life altering that it made me rethink plant medicine. I never would touch mushrooms. I never touched exit. I never did any of those things in college or any of it. And when I tried rape with a shaman, it changed my entire framing. It was like, there's something to this. There's answers here that I had never found before. And then it was kind of one of those things where I looked inside of me and was just like, well, what exactly do you have to lose, especially taking a microdose? Because I started with microdosing. It's like, okay, so you take 200 milligrams, which is smaller than a Tylenol. What's the worst that can happen, right? Like I end up, taking a nap or like seeing colorful things. And then when you start researching, it's like, okay, what's the worst that can happen? And Plus, like, it was the middle of COVID, so it's not like I had a job or anything to lose because that had already happened. So when you hit rock bottom, you're like, all right, well, what's next? So I tried it, and it was just like all of a sudden I was so aware of being aware, which is crazy, but that is what you need to do. When you become so self-aware that you're able to change your patterning in the moment, all of a sudden trauma cycles are able to be flipped right then and there. It's not one of those things where you sit on a therapist's couch for 15 years and they're like, okay, this is what you need to do. You need to recognize this. You need to do this. Da, 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 da. All of a sudden you take 200 milligrams of these, fungi that grow, in cow pastures. And it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so aware of my thinking. I'm so aware of my actions. It's like a hyper breath of fresh air of, oh my gosh, I have choice. And that's what it's giving people back, is that we're scripted by the time we're 3 into our parents' scripting. And we have a hard time learning choice after that, right? You can take all these drugs, you can do this, you can do that. But what you don't realize is that emotions are rooted in the past, feelings are rooted in the present. And you have to be able to be self-aware enough to be able to choose in the moment the person that you want to be. And that's what this medicine is doing, that nothing like it has done before, and with no side effects. So what we have seen with our, because we tested it on ourselves and then tested it on friends and then started like branching out, because of course that's the natural state of things. But what John Hopkins was studying and what everyone was doing, it was just the first time that we looked at something and said, oh my gosh, this might have the answers, because SSRIs and antidepressants are not doing what they promised. And if they do it, you shut off the good feelings with the bad. And being a zombie is no way for anybody to live. And the fact that this was actually something that was promising more, how could you not get on board with that? And we've dedicated our lives to it. And it has been one of the most remarkable things of my life. I mean, I'll never go back to a regular 9-to-5 for sure.
Well, and I think it's a beautiful thing, and it's so fitting to be on this show because it's breaking barriers, right? Like, that's the name of your show. That's literally what psilocybin does for people. It breaks barriers. It breaks those thresholds that they've been told, like, on a therapist's couch, like a therapist will just tell you, like, I don't have anything else to give you. Like, I can't help you anymore. You can keep coming back all day long and every day, and we'll keep charging your insurance. And we'll talk about your life, and we'll repeat the same shit over and over again. And it's like, you're actually just verbally reprocessing the same trauma over and over and over again. You're actually not doing anything. You're not breaking anything in the patterning of the brain. And it's so dangerous when humans get into those patternings and they don't want to break through the habits and they don't want to break the barriers and they just be. That's when people die. Like, you physically may not be here, but you have mentally died because you have chosen to just continue to succumb to the cycle. And, you know, psilocybin really allows for people to change patterning in real time, like Megan said, and you get to break past those thresholds that at one point you were condemned to. You were told that's it. Like, you are your parents. This is it. Like, we don't have a lot of options. You know, your SSRI is not working. Now your sleep medication's not working. Your Adderall is not working. Like, we don't have anything else to give you. And now it's really great because I was even yesterday doing some research for an individual who is, you know, he's in recovery right now, and he is a veteran, and he's like, hey, you know, like, AA says that if I take this, I will break my sobriety. Well, the beautiful research right now is that there is actually no side effects. Psilocybin right now is being proven more and more and more in every clinical trial that they continue to try to prove that it's addictive. There's no addictive properties to this. The body actually will stop at a certain point, actually even creating a site like effects. So it's non-addictive, non-habit forming, and quite frankly, it's natural. So your body literally processes it. There's no damage done. It just helps your brain and your neural network become stronger.
Right. And I think so the challenge that I think of modern medicine, most fields, like I said earlier, most people don't understand the science behind it is you always look at a psychedelic like a drug, right? Like you think of the quintessential. When you hear psychedelic, like I instantly think of Woodstock, if I'm being honest. Like my visceral reaction to psychedelics is Woodstock. I don't know why that's where I go, but that's where I go viscerally. But so for people out there who have never tried it, right? Because I've heard a ton about it, even like myself, like over the years. And I've had really bad anxiety most of my life, right? And I had anxiety disorder for a majority of my life. And through being able to I'm a very holistic person, right? So I was somebody who's always like, I'm not going to get medicine prescribed to me and then being stuck in this vicious cycle of like relying on big pharma to like make me feel better. And so for people out there like myself who have never actually tried microdosing, right? And also, again, there's that anxious part of my brain that's like, what if you take it and you start tripping out and you have this anxious experience? Like literally that's where my head goes, right? Like all of my friends in the past are like, dude, you have to try this. It's like the best trip of your life. And I've always been terrified because that anxious part of my mind. So I guess my question is, and for people out there who have never done it, right? So when you're microdosing, with what you guys are offering specifically, right? So I'm not going to say any other random microdosing method, but you're specifically like, what am I going to feel like? So I've never, ever microdosed, never tried it. So like, I'm sure everybody has their own experience, right? So, but what would you, if you can give me like the best, like paint a picture for me, like for people out there who haven't tried it yet?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I do want to do a disclaimer that some people are more sensitive than others, but we don't see that very often. Most of the time, a 200 milligram dose, which is half of a Tylenol, actually not even half of a Tylenol, it's less than that. You almost don't notice it. Most people will say, am I supposed to be feeling something? Am I supposed to am my arm supposed to tingle? Am I supposed to see bright colors? But we have to remember that we're working in such small doses. Now, you get up into 1, 2, 3 grams, you're going to trip. You're going to see happy colors. You're not going to be able to drive. It's going to be a great time. You might see some geometrical shapes. Your hardwood floor might talk to you. Things will get really crazy. However, when you're working in really small doses, so this is, there is 1,000 milligrams to 1 gram, and we're working in 200 milligrams. So it's very small.
Right.
And I can speak, and Megan also can speak for her personal very first time. I remember the first time I took a 200 milligram microdose. I remember being like, wow, I have no brain chatter. My brain slowed down. Because I'm an energy source. I am like an Energizer bunny. I am doing 10,000 things all the time. So I take this microdose and I'm like, oh, wow. My hands are really great. I love my hands and I'm really thankful for them because I was actually making a cup of coffee when it kind of all set in. And I was just so calm. That's really what it was. There was no brain chatter. I was just able to write down what I needed to do for the day and go on about my day. There was no this crazy euphoric feeling or anything that made me feel unsafe or question this oh my God, I'm going to start tripping. That was never a feeling that I had.
Yeah, no, there's no tripping aspects to microdosing. You can drive, you can be with your kids, people are not even going to know. It's quite literally like taking a Tylenol and it's okay, I have anxiety or I'm stressed out. And instead of taking something for, a headache, you're taking a microdose for that anxiety, for that, depression or whatever. And then all of a sudden you're in the present moment because anxiety lives in the future, depression lives in the past. So all of a sudden you're just right here, right now, and getting to take advantage of that moment. That's what it gifts you. You very rarely do people even notice that they took something other than all of a sudden all this negative stuff that was going on or they had going on in their minds or in their body is just gone. And then people don't even know what it's like to be present because we're so jacked up. It's a thing.
No, it's
right. And even anxiety in the brain, that's actually how your neural pathways work. If we didn't have anxiety, your brain wouldn't function correctly. So you see all these people on anti-anxieties and they're like, I can't It's like almost like they're in slow motion. And so I understand
Right.
why people get so concerned about taking pharmaceuticals. But when you take mushrooms and you have anxiety, when you're present, the anxiety goes away because the brain actually needs anxiety in order for the neurotransmitters to even work correctly. That's how serotonin or norepinephrine or anything is communicated, is actually the electrical impulse of anxiety. So you don't want to take that away. Also, anxious people or people with anxiety in their brains actually age less over time. So anxiety is good for the brain. It's just that we want to hold that in a space where it's not crippling either, because you don't want to constantly be in this state of like a million things going on in your head. And that's what we've seen with microdosing, is just like, oh, I'm present. I'm not 10 steps ahead or 50 steps behind. I just get to be right here and right now. And I mean, who doesn't want that? That's why it's moving so quickly. Is you don't have to trip, you don't have to do anything. You just get to take something that essentially brings you into the present. And I don't have enough good things to say.
I know.
There's like not words for what this stuff is doing. It's crazy.
Now, so first off, you said two things that are, I think, absolutely critical for anybody who's watching right now. I think this is important if you're feeling anxiety, anxious, depression, whatever else. You said something that actually helped me along in my journey, and it's more obviously anxious based and related, but you said something about how like your body needs anxiety, right? And anxiety is not a bad thing in a lot of ways, at least scientifically. For people listening that have anxiety, they're like probably like, fuck that, anxiety sucks. But no, in reality though, I think that was a big way, like I shared with you earlier, like with my anxiety in the past when I was like crippling anxiety, like it was really for me to characterize and utilize that anxiety to my benefit rather than to my negative. And I love that you just said the positive about how, again, it ages the brain slowly, and there's things that you need it for. And so first off, for people listening, I'm sure that really helped them a ton, because a lot of times you just think about our anxious mind and how bad it is and how much we hate our brains because we're so anxious all the time. So I think that right there alone was such a profound statement. I really appreciate you sharing that. But the second part of it that I think is really interesting. So again, I'm thinking, again, you have to like my microdosing virgin brain is listening to this, right? And I'm just trying to imagine the fantasy of like what it could be like based off of my friends who have actually like taken mushrooms and have tripped purposely, right? Because they wanted that trip. And then you think about what you're saying. And so obviously, you know, for my friends out there that have like, that are so good at like explaining their trip and whatever, it's like you have your senses, you know, you have all the different senses that are affected in positive ways, right? So it's like your vision, your hearing, your sense, what you're touching. And there's all different aspects of that, right? So what I kind of like about what you just said there and what resonated with me and my virgin microdosing brain, right, is that realistically, you're not taking enough of it to be tripping, right? And but it is enough to open up a couple of these different senses up a little bit at a very small level and functional, clearly very functional level. And I'm talking to all of us layman termers out there who like don't know any of this cool science stuff and big words you're using. But it's like realistically, I feel like it's opening enough of the lid to let out the positive components in all of our senses, and is not going over the top. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. I mean, and you can really think about it when you start like a microdosing regimen. You know, we talk about like we always explain it to people is like, you know, when you're driving through snow, you create a path, like everyone is driving on the same thing, right? Then all of a sudden there's that one person that's like, I want to kind of go over here and create this new way, like this new pathway. Whether that was a good idea or a bad idea, I don't know. Usually that person is struggling on the side of the road in a really bad snowstorm. But we're going to think about this theoretically in regards to the brain. So we have our neuroplasticity is solidified at 25. So like Megan was saying, we're scripted by 3 and our neuroplasticity is solidified by 25. So like our patterning is set in the brain by 25. That is how it is. So when psilocybin is entered in, what happens is it slowly, in slow doses, starts to move those those tires slightly off a little bit, creating a new neural pathway, creating a new way of thinking, something new within the body and within the brain. So when, like you said, you're creating senses, but you're creating a new awareness of a sense, or a new awareness of a patterning, or a new awareness of a behavior, to be able to rewire potentially a bad programming that was maybe codependent, or it was, heavily anxiety driven, or it triggered PTSD and a trauma response, or it was a reason that you're able to kind of like look at this and say, okay, like now I can repattern my brain.
Yeah, and neurons that fire together wire together. So we're trying to make new dendrites and new choices in the brain, because your personality is your personal reality. What you think is who you are. Thoughts are the fastest form of energy, right? If we're talking quantum physics, thoughts are the fastest form of energy. Our bodies are the slowest. Matter is energy. We forget that. So what we think is who we are. And there's Taoist philosophies about this. They've known this for thousands and thousands of years. And it's like now we're coming back to almost Eastern and shamanic realities, and realizing that if you change your thought patterning, you change your life. And that's it. It comes down to a simple thought. And that's what these mushrooms are doing, is allowing for thought patterning changes. If you change your thoughts, you will change your life. It changes your personality. It changes your personal reality. And it is that simple. That's what's so amazing about it, is it's not complex. So if you take these mushrooms and you start to shift thought patterning, you can literally be anybody you want to be. You're not just like, it's not a death sentence to live the life in depression or anxiety. It's no longer a life sentence anymore. Just like most people don't want a life sentence on pharmaceuticals, these mushrooms, I promise you, will change the way that you interact with yourself. And if you change the interaction with self, you change every interaction with every person, because we're all here for relationships, and it all begins with us and our thoughts within us.
Well, and it's also
just a quick question on that point, though. Is it safe to say, though, that throughout that new self-discovery journey, right, once you start testing microdosing, that it will still take a little bit of effort? Because like you seem like somebody, again, like you've shared that, like, you've had some past stuff that goes through, but you also seem like somebody who's very resilient and has a good mindset, and that takes effort, right? So is there, when you're sharing this, is there also like it's almost like a two combo, right? It's like a twofer, where it's like we have to come into it with the right mentality and put that work in, as well as the combination between the two. I just wanted to clarify the distinction of the synergy between those two.
Right. It's intention.
Yeah. And it's also wanting to do the work. We have people that come to us all the time and they're like, well, it'll fix me. Yeah, but you have to be willing to step in and actually do the work, because it's not going to do it for you. And that, that's one reason why we're in this. We have built out a 12-week program that is all framing. We break it down from the very beginning of understanding even how your brain works, because most people don't even understand that we have 70,000 thoughts a day. Like, that's a lot. Like, holy cow. And half of those were yesterday, and half of them are split between the present and the future. So where are you? Because if you only have 1/3 of your thought in the present moment, you're probably depressed or anxious. And we've got to look at that. And that's where, with intention and psilocybin framing, that's where it all comes together. And that's where actually the beauty happens. And that's where Megan and I, we have collected 10 years of our own healing journey. We've put it all together. And psilocybin was really like the last key, because we actually figured out wow, this is how you shift the brain. This is the way of the future, because you can sit on a therapist's couch for 15 years and make 2 steps forward, where you can do a 12-week program with a coach that understands what's happening and be able to come out on the other side with tools that you can continue to use in your own life and in your own journey and how you function as a human. It's a never ending growth pattern.
Well, and resilience comes down to choice. You know, you're right. I am a resilient person because I choose positive thought patterning. There's a thing called TFAR, which is thoughts become feelings, feelings become actions, actions result in your life. And it is that simple. It's when something
Right.
happens, what are you going to choose? Because there's a positive and negative to everything in life. And you become what you choose to believe and have faith in.
Right.
And this company came about when we figured out what TFAR was. And it's like, I can spend my life feeling sorry for myself and being like, COVID happened and I lost my job, da 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 da. Or we can just go all in and believe that we're capable of doing something that other people will get on board with and other people want community and just go for it. Or we can spend our lives, you know, being like, oh, well, you know, that could have been, coulda, shoulda. You know, we have a saying that says, don't should on me. Like, don't do shoulds. Just go for it. Like, what do you have to
Right.
lose? At the end of the day, like, actually, failure is better than success because you learned something. It's far more valuable. You know, we spend each day, it's
Right.
like, what did we fail out today? What did we fail at today? And how can we do better tomorrow? I love failure. I thrive off of it. And I have a much different relationship with it than I did as a child. I was afraid of it and I was afraid to tell my parents. And now it's one of those things where it's my greatest teacher. And I would rather fail than succeed because I'm gaining something. And when you start to reframe what you think of as bad versus, you know, what's actually good, and you can take everything as good. There's always good in life. It's just
Right.
how you're taught to really think about it. And that's how you become a resilient, positive minded person is by finding the good in all things. And you hear that, but to actually recognize it and step into it is life altering. But most of us don't have the framing around it at this point in time. I hope that in the future that changes to be able to be a positive mindset person, even in the crappiest of situations, because that changes everything.
I effing love that whole entire statement. Like, there's the podcast. We wrapped it up. She just crushed it. Mic drop. Here we go. That was amazing. Wow. Love that. And let's just capture that and take that in for a second and unpack it for a quick sec. Because I think that a lot of us are brought up. Like, one of the things that we're training and adapting social right now with my agency is like the thought process behind the fact that as like children, we're never taught how to be in relationships. We only grow up to watch our parents or the people around us be in relationships, right? And what does that do, and how does that affect us, right? We wind up going out and trying to figure it out on our own, taking what we've learned from our parents. But the one thing that that super resonates with me, based on, you know, that incredible statement that you shared, is the fact that ultimately, right, that we are not what has happened to us in our life. We are not the circumstances or the cards that we were dealt. And that's the beauty of being able to be on this planet, just being positive, obviously, for a second, because it's like, at the end of the day, we cannot control the circumstances that happen to us all the time. We can't control the weather. We can't control our actions. And we can't control our perspective, right? And just like our relationships, we also learn typically taught how to act in bad situations that happen to us. We see reactions from our parents and, you know, those people in the defining programming moments of our lives. And then we think that's life. Or we think that's what we're supposed to do. When those things happen, you're supposed to be really angry or really sad or cry, or when you're not getting your way. And I think that's the awesome part about self-discovering journeys, is that you do have the ability to rewire and to think of things differently. And the one thing I love about Tony Robbins, you know, he always shares how, you know, his family, he had alcoholism in his family, and he had all these different situations in his family. But he said, you know, I'm not going to carry that over into my generation, right? Into like my children and them forward. I'm stopping that shit with me. That's not moving forward, right? And that was a decision. It was a choice to do that. So love that, what you said. Anybody who's just watching this, because this is live right now, if you go back probably 20 seconds ago, there was an absolute golden nugget, times a million dropped. But as we get close to the end here, I have a last few questions, right? So one of the questions that had come in for you guys was, okay, boom, you guys are sisters, right? And typically working with family, is really difficult for most people, right? Now, I don't subscribe to that, right? My wife and I work together, but most people do not have successful working relationships with their family or their friends. I wanted to understand, for all the entrepreneurs watching that have family members they work with, what is like the values or ideology you guys have behind working together harmoniously and productively?
Oh, that's so good. We get this all the time. I think one thing it truly comes down to, and it's like what you were just talking about, John, it's communication and
Right.
knowing that it's business, not personal, and that sometimes Megan has an idea that I don't like, and I have an idea she doesn't like, but we talk about it and we come to
Right.
the table with full understanding that like we both have the intention to do the absolute best we can in this company and grow it and push it. And being in that, I mean, for us, our relationship is, I think, is much different than other sisters because we've had to lean on each other for so long that we don't even really fight. Like we'll have tiffs, but it's very different. But I think it really is just communication and being open and 100% honest with her if there's a mistake that is made or if there's a challenge, not ignoring it, because so often I think family members, they bring trauma and past junk forward into the business, and it can be potentially very detrimental.
Well, and it's also boundaries, being able to communicate strong but loving boundaries. And it's not a fight for power, it's a fight for love. Yeah. We're not here on a power trip of like who's in charge or who's doing this, it's who's doing that. It's a firm belief in that I know her heart is in this and loves it as much as I do. And I trust that above all. So it's never a power trip between us. And that's so often what we do in all relationships where it goes wrong. We're facing a 75% divorce rate. And, that's huge, but that's because couples fight for power. They don't fight for love. And if you start to put love and loving boundaries in any relationship, that is what makes or breaks a relationship. And that is what creates a successful business relationship. But what creates a successful business relationship creates a successful even marriage, because marriage is a business in a way. And you have to learn, the world has to learn to fight for love. This is what we're missing. If you don't take anything else from what I say, remember this: fight for love, stop fighting for power. Because power is endless and it's unfulfilling and it's not satisfying, but you will find fulfillment and true life in love and the frequency of love. And you can make anything whole with love, but you can't with power. And that's a huge shift that I believe the world needs to make. And that's what makes our relationship work as sisters and as business partners, is because we know each other's heart and it's always of the frequency of love.
And it's 100% transparent. There's nothing that Megan, like, we talk about everything. We talk about every contract, every money piece of every dollar that comes in, every client that steps in our door. We talk about everything together, and it's a decision and a discussion. It's not one over the other. It's a 50-50 relationship. And it's really, it's so often the lack of communication that ruins most relationships, including marriages, businesses, friendships.
I couldn't agree more. And if I can, just because we were, again, at Adapting Social, we're learning this right now. And our executive coach brought that to our attention. I just want to bring some new perspective to that thought, what you just said, which is 50-50, right? We're taught that growing up. We hear that everywhere, right? But what we're training on right now is 100-100. Because when somebody is giving 100% on each side of the relationship, then when somebody's sick or somebody's going through some shit or whatever else, because if there's a 50-50 and somebody's not giving their 50, that means that there's a deficit. And when somebody's giving 100 and 100, that means that I'm over delivering, right? And that's another focal point right now that we're focusing on internally, which is not just delivering what's expected or what your job is or what you're supposed to bring to a relationship. It's how can I over deliver and how can I add to the emotional bank by being positive, by literally adding deposits, by over delivering on a high level, not because I want something in return, but because I want to add as much value to the people I care about's lives or the team members around me or whatever. So I just wanted to share that because my mission right now is to eliminate 50-50.
I love that.
And
I love that.
I think you guys are definitely already 100-100. That's a
Yeah.
surefire path.
Try.
But so much so many of us hear that stuff, and it's like I hear things like that where it's like, oh, what's knowledge? Knowledge is power, but knowledge is not power. Applied knowledge is power, right? So it's like ultimately, I just wanted to share that real quick because we're going through that training internally at Adapting Social at the moment, and I was like, wow, that's a great opportunity. I want to share that. But for people out there, number one, I'm so incredibly grateful for your guys' time today. Time is the one asset we don't get back, so you spending it here with us means the absolute world to me and our listeners. This is where you plug yourself. Where can people find you? How can they engage with you? Website, social, you name it.
Yeah, absolutely, John. Well, thank you so much for sharing your time as well, because your time is also just as valuable, and we can't get it back, right? So our Instagram is Zenchronicity_sisters. That is our business page. Then we have a podcast as well. That's Zenchronicity_podcast. We have them separate. We are in season 2, which has really been a super fun journey. We've got to connect with some unbelievable humans, and they have got to share their journeys with psychedelics. We have a few that are going to be on the show coming up about breath work, meditation, how they've used all of these different holistic modalities to heal themselves. And then we have our website, which is Zenchronicity222.com. That's where you'll find how to work with us and any additional information that you want to seek out about us. Instagram is the best way to get a hold of us. We both currently run it. It usually takes us about 48 hours to return all DMs. We always love to disclaim this, that we're not mushroom dealers. We're not, people DM us all the time. Hey, do you have a plug? I'm like, no, I'm sorry, but please, please seek other places. But those are the 3 main places to get in touch with us. And of course, if they want to hear our podcast, that streams on all major platforms from Spotify, Apple, and Google.
I love it. And then I'm going to leave you. I waited to the very end for this, and so I'm going to start with Nicole on this one first. And so I'm gonna give you guys both 2 separate questions. Both one is tad a little bit more difficult. I'm not gonna say which one is which yet, but I'm gonna start with Nicole. Okay. And so again, legacy is something that we think about typically from where our feet are planted today and onward, right? And to the future and what we're gonna be remembered by and all that good stuff. A lot of times, we think that way because we know where we are right now and we know where we're gonna go and we hope we can get there. In this question / exercise, I want to reverse engineer that. And so I would like to ask you, right? So based on who you are, right? What you're doing right now in your work and your personal, if you were to write the one thing that's going to supersede you, right? In any lifetime, in any family or whatever in the future, which is your gravestone. If you were to write that today, and obviously paraphrasing, not exact, what would that say?
Be the change you wish to see in this world.
Bam. And so unpack that for us, right? So how would that be how you were remembered by?
So I love this because, one, it was my senior quote in high school. It was in my yearbook. It was my senior yearbook. I've always loved that quote. Maybe it's on a past life gravestone or something. Who knows? But the whole thing of we're individuals. We can change what we see is broken. Whether because my lens is different than Meg's lens is different than your lens. So all I can do and all in my power is to change what I see that needs to be shifted. And if everyone did that and everyone stepped in and adjusted and fixed and did the best they absolutely could to bring 100% to the table to shift humanity would be moving forward and for the best, because everyone would have the true best intention. And so, every day I look at life and I say, okay, what do I see that I can change in this moment, or who can I help in this moment to give whatever I have collected or I have found that I can give back to help push humanity forward to be the best humanity and the best version humanity can be, even after I am gone.
Love that. Love that. Mic drop. And then for Megan, has there been any quotes or adages through your journey when it comes to resilience in specific that you think about for your journey and means a lot to you?
My favorite quote is "Most men die at 25 and aren't buried until they're 70" by Benjamin Franklin. And I think of that daily. Daily.
Wow.
Don't let yourself die at 25, because most of us do. And that's why we live in a world that is so uninspired and so out of touch with love, is because most people, they just stop living at 25. Your life is just beginning every day. You have a chance every day to be the person that you want to be. There's no such thing as a sentence where you don't have a choice in that. We always have choice. But that quote I heard, I don't even know when I heard it the first time, but it stuck with me. And I can't believe it was true that long ago, right? The founding fathers.
Yeah,
and
really
it's still
about
true
it, right?
today. Wow. Right? And it's like,
it's timeless.
It's timeless. And it's also just so freaking true. I meet people in their 40s and their 50s that are recreating themselves, that are like, oh, I'm too old, or I'm too this, or I'm too that. No. Step in. It's never too late. You're never too old. You're never too fat. You're never too skinny, whatever. That's just an excuse. It's just a mindset. And when you shift a thought, when you shift a mindset, it changes your personality. It changes your personal reality. And it's just like, I don't know. I'm if I had a tattoo, I would definitely get that, but it's probably I don't like tattoos. Personally, on me.
You're on number 3. You have now officially committed to almost 3 tattoos. This is a thing.
I'm not kidding.
Is it gonna happen? Is that what's gonna happen?
Well, we had a dog actually pass on Tuesday this week.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. They're our greatest teachers. I never realized that until she was passing on Tuesday, because we had to put her to sleep. She was really sick. And I was like, the amount that I have learned from this dog of just like unconditional love and resilience, and just, she basically like mothered us through college and stuff, and like the protector and the dedication.
Yeah.
I'll carry that with me for the rest of my life. And that's her legacy. It's within all of us. They never really leave us because they become a part of us. And so as sad as it is, and we miss her in the physical, I know she lives within us every day, and we are who we are because of her. Even just an animal, which is wild. But again, it's that choice of thought of, I don't believe the things we love ever leave us. So
your tattoo is going to be a sunflower.
Yeah, but my tattoo is going to be a sunflower, because we used to take her hiking. So that'll be my first tattoo. Then I'll work on the Benjamin Franklin.
No dog paws.
Yeah, Benjamin Franklin has to be last. He's got to be last. But it's a very, very good quote, though. I love that. But again, ladies, thank you so much. Everybody listening in, definitely give a shout out to them. Go check them out. You guys are making some big impact, and I'm super excited to continue to see your success, first off. And just to follow your journey. So thank you again so much for your time today. I'm super grateful for it. And everybody out there listening, again, create a great day. Don't listen or prescribe to the fact that you're not in charge of it. You are in charge of it. So I hope you create a good one, because again, not having a good one takes the same energy, right? You might as well have a good one. So at the end of the day, guys, thank you again so much. We appreciate you.